All right, James. Fortunately, you asked another question which I can answer more directly and purposefully. How do you organize notes slash materials during play? During prep, I'll have all these character notes, maps, etc., etc., and then the minute I sit down, all that stuff explodes all over everything, and it's impossible to find anything or to recall it. That may just be me, but it's an example of concrete, practical habits that we don't normally consider to be technique in the same way as, say, weaves or veils or what have you. Well, I consider it technique. In fact, I consider it more technique than those things. I have tried, especially in the last 5 years, to be very explicit with what I am bringing to play. In the game that James and I played, the fourth edition Dungeons and Dragons game, you can go back and you can see my dungeon notes, and you can see the scribbles and dungeony things that I drew up, and all of my uh, torturing of Dyson's work, to do these weird things that I wanted to do. And I tried to be as clear as possible in those presentations and in those posts with what I literally was doing. I've tried to do that for all the games that I've played. You can often find my prep notes in the pool games. I mean, I put in the images of my page prep. That's what I had going in. Okay, so I've tried to give that perspective, but it is true that James is asking something pretty interesting, which is okay, I have that, but it all goes kerflooey. This is an interesting point because it has for me too, and I know why. I know for me when that happens, when everything that I've got just scatters off the table. And by the way, I have seen this happen for people trying to play Sorcerer, and the why is the same. Cubed. It's because you're writing. It's because you sit down and you're worried about how you're concerned. Your effort is focused on where it's going to go, how it's going to be. I'm going to say X, and then what will that be? And I need to be ready for that. And you play toward things, you present things in a way that isn't oriented toward itself, but oriented toward what will come of it. Even if you don't think you're doing that, maybe you are. I'm talking about from my own perspective and what I've seen people go through at the table when they also get all flummoxed and all their stuff goes everywhere. It's because we're in a fight, in playing Dark Earth Legends, and the game master is suddenly terrified that one of the characters will die. One of the player characters will die. So they're trying to conduct the logistics of the Dark Earth fight, and then all of a sudden, they've got the skeletons numbered, skeleton number 2, skeleton number 3, and then we've also got our initiative numbering, and all of a sudden those two numbers get all mixed up, and he realizes that particular combat round has just gone completely murky for him, and he cannot keep track. I've seen it happen with Sorcerer over and over, with people saying, okay, well, I got, these bangs, then I'm going to do that, and then, okay, because this, then, and then the demon could do this. So if the demon could do this, then, that's going to be a moral, that'll be a humanity check if he does that. And they're just really wrapped up in there. And, okay, but I have this in the backstory, so that's got to come in. Okay, that should come in after he, they're writing. And that's what's happening, I think, to some extent with James, your experiences with Marvel superheroes / champions now. And sometimes. And that's what does it. Otherwise, if you've got play materials, and we can talk about what is sufficient rather than what is overkill, but that's not a quantitative question, it's qualitative, because it's the same answer. When you start writing, you're in overkill, even if you have 3 notes. So that's the huge thing. It's a big shift. I mean, we're playing. I'm playing with people, and I'm actually modeling this on the behavior of someone that I saw do this a long time ago. And just basically turn and say, you're writing. That's not play. So I think that even though it seems perhaps a little slogany, that might be the first step. That no amount of organization of the physicality of the pieces of play or memorization of stuff and little notes stuck into the proper rules section, of the book so you can flip to them or anything like that, all of that will become chaos when you become invested in how things are about to turn out in a fashion that exceeds your formal authorities as a process of play. This is something one struggles out of. And I speak, as somebody who has tried pretty hard, that it's not something that you go, oh, well then, okay, I got it. And you just hop in because you understand it. No, this is body work. You have to do it. And you have to have false starts. You have to have failures. You have to have misstatements where you say exactly the wrong thing. All of that sort of grope and kill form of learning. And it works is the only good thing about it. Okay, so onwards to Greg's question. Would you list 3 Adepts Play posts that you would like to see more comments at, and the reason why you think those matter to you? Just 3? All right, so the selfish one first, which is pretty clear. It comes from those 3 words that I was so impressed by at Kulturnatten last year. It's in seminar. It's called 3 Words. It has to do with what is accepted, what is expected, and what is possible as a person participating in role playing. And I think these are brilliant. I think that the phrasing of this is just where we need to be. There are no comments on that post. Or rather, are there? Yes, there are some. But I think they flail quite a lot. And I think that it is well worth everybody's time. Because I don't have my, my bumper sticker. I don't have my essay. I don't have my answer. I don't even have my intuitively felt position that I feel I could articulate if I tried. No, I was shattered by that phrasing. I want you to be shattered too, and I want to see dialogue about it. If you're not shattered, well, then we should all be listening to you right now. So, get to it. I want to see that one. Okay. Also, selfishly, I think that the Q&A videos like this one have wonderful dialogue at the Patreon, and then I put them up at the website and nobody does anything. And I'm like, these were kind of good for us, in the Patreon. Can't we get one ripple outward? So then, non-selfishly, Mansfeld, the fellow who has posted extensively about all kinds of games, learned, go back and read all of Mansfeld's posts, and you will see a really, really good awareness of how to write a post and what for, how to open it up for dialogue, how to focus on it instead of just giving this enormous, summary, identifying the questions, all sorts of things. And those posts deserve, especially the later ones, as that technique. I mean, he's put great deal of effort into this, into Not just more, effort meaning more, but effort meaning less, effort meaning focus, effort meaning content. There's a problem for me, which is that the games themselves are not really where I'm at. I'm not that able / interested, or at least not prioritized. There's always something else to lead me to say, oh, well, I'm on it. Let's get into talking about this. I'm interested. I have commented and on stuff that does interest me, but I really don't think I'm doing the posts justice. And other people who are familiar with those games or feel or intuit the nature of the issues that have been raised, you should be jumping in on those. I mean, really, I mean, this is an example of somebody who's doing exactly the right thing and needs someone else to do the right thing too. Okay, so that's well, all right, I'm gonna rant a little. Okay, arguably, you could click on any post at Adepts Play almost at random. I would say at random, except that if it's something that you look at and you say, I am totally not interested, then you shouldn't. But aside from that, you could click on anything at random, and if you don't have that reaction, it's eligible for commenting. And I think a lot of people have, even if you had read that, even if you were around back then, like for an old one, I think a lot of people have gone through a lot of changes in the last few years about role playing, and it may be very worthwhile to revisit that. I mean, I'm not even saying it's one you participated in. Maybe one that was around, when you first started participating in Adepts Play and it was just there, or maybe long before you ever saw, you were ever there, or maybe one that you just, passed by when it appeared, wasn't your thing, whatever. Go look at it. Post there. So it's less about where I want you to post. In this case, it's more about just be active and recognize that this is a learning environment and that you can learn from something that happened a bit ago better than you can learn from what somebody is talking about right now. Because you've had time to think, you've had time to do things, think things, have experiences since that was raised. Look at the timestamp when you do that. Look at it and say, okay, this was in 2018. What was I thinking then? What do I think now? Let's go in and address whatever has been raised in this and in the comments. From my perspective now. Even if you had nothing to do with it and your name is nowhere in the post or the comments as it stands. Okay, if you do that, or rather at all, last point about commenting on posts at Adepts Play. One thing I have noted, and no, it is not just the one person who cops to it when I mentioned it before, it's lots of people, is the tendency to talk to oneself. You say, oh, well, that's interesting. Thing A. I wonder if that, if people would do B or B prime. If it's B prime, then okay, then I would do this, but I would be worried. I would be worried if maybe that wouldn't work out. So, okay, but then if we expand that out to a larger question, so B prime squared, because now we're going to, you see what I mean? You're talking to yourself. You're walking through a sequence of responses all by yourself. And I beg of you not to do that. Let the dialogue do that. You can take notes, on things that you might want to, go with or where, but you will swiftly work yourself into anxieties and many assumptions. That's where all sorts of crazy ass claims, well, people would do this, or that wouldn't work because, or, oh, that would work fine, whatever. All this basically vapor. So there's no point. Just go with the primary response and maybe some of the nuances or questions that come out of that without answering them or assuming or then jumping on it because you're afraid somebody perhaps is going to scoop you and say what you would say about it, or just let them. Wouldn't that be, that's good, right? I mean, that they see it your way. I mean, let that happen. So that's the how, regarding how people might be commenting on stuff. On to Greg. Oh no, that was Greg. That was Greg's first question. Greg's second question is about diagramming. Where did you go? There. It's about diagramming combats in Sorcerer. I'm looking to take better notes of what happens during a conflict. The diagram technique in the annotated rulebook is very clear and suggests stacking dice on character names, but online play makes it difficult to pile up the dice when everyone rolls their action. To have a clear vision of what's happening, do you just note all the dice results on the arrows, or do you have a better technique? Now, this is an important point because the physicality of the table in playing Sorcerer is, as for many games, rather a big deal. And I have grappled with this slightly because I actually have expanded the role of that physical space, as have many in my designs. And so going to screen, sort of threw us all a curve. And I find that I hate virtual tabletops with almost every fiber of my being. Once or twice they've been useful, but all the other fibers are like, forget it. I won't even look at them a lot of the time in play. It's not very nice, but they really ruin it for me. So here we have this question. Now, I will tell you how I would do it now. And it's actually how I've been doing it for a couple of other things and have not found it onerous. There's effort. Everybody should have sticky notes, perhaps, writing implement, dice, and lots of open space. So it's not the GM managing anything, because that's not how I do it on the table either. I just put all that shit out there in the middle. And so I guess we just all should duplicate that. So if I say, all right, so-and-so, you're coming in on that person, so-and-so, you're coming in on that person's going to do this. Okay, so that's what's going on, free and clear, right? We've got all this stated. One of you may be oriented toward drawing little circles and arrows on a piece of paper to do that, which I do too a lot of the time. Another person may be about the movable scraps of paper, or whatever a person needs to do. But I think we should all have it, and we should all have a reasonable trust that we've all set it up, a dialogue to set it up the same. And then when the dice are rolled, does that mean that everybody has to get out a bunch of dice and actually turn them all to the right faces and put them on there? Well, in a perfect world, yes. But really, just squirching in, the top number or the resolving number for each one is probably okay. And then when the defensive rolls or the countering rolls occur, then you just can note the number of victories for the winning side. And I find this actually, it seems crazy. You're like, you're asking people to do what? Well, you know what? I ask people to do a lot in role playing, and I really don't think any one person should have this enormous logistic role during play. Different games are different in terms of preparation time for different people. Logistically, everybody needs to contribute to the mutual understanding of what's going on. They just do. And in Sorcerer, these techniques work beautifully in the physicality among the table of all of us. And so you just have to do that as needed for the screen. And I don't think the virtual tabletop is good enough. I really don't. I think that physicality at the table for each of us. And so that when I say, oh, okay, so wait, what did you get on that? Was that a 3? I have a 3 here. And you're like, yeah, it's a 3. Or not. You say, no, he had the 3. I got the 4. You're like, oh, okay, that's you. Okay, shoot. So that can be done very easily once you say, okay, that's what we're doing. It sounds terrible saying it out. You're like, what? Everybody has to do what? Yeah. Go ahead. the payoff is astonishing in a dozen different variables. Okay. Boy. Ooh. I may have to take a break. Moving into the next ones, I think. So we're about halfway through.